Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good full moon, whatever it is, wherever you're watching this. Welcome to another edition of KU Sports Extra. I'm Matt Tait, joined by Tom Keegan, as always, for our second show of KU Sports Extra. And we're going to start this thing off like we always do with a little bit of good news for the Kansas.
I got some good news for everybody, and that is one of us called something right last week. And that's when Matt Tait said that Texas was in shambles and BYU destroyed Texas. So good news is we're not completely full of it.
Well, on that note, you also picked Tony Pearson as your primetime pick. And Tony Pearson was a primetime player.
Yes, he was. He was second in my ratings to Dexter McDonald.
Not bad. Enough of this, though. Let's stop patting ourselves on the back. We
Why?
might hurt ourselves. Let's get to the good news for this week. And the good news is Kansas football finally has a real, live, breathing college football offense again. It was wonderful to see what you see every other team in college football run.
It is good news. Spread it out, and like you said, it didn't look like a stodgy old high school offense, which is what Kansas's pro-style offense sometimes looked like. Looked like a snappy college offense. However, there is some bad news, Matt, and the bad news is Kansas is going on the road and is 0-27 in its last 27 games away from home.
Yeah, 2:30 Saturday at Duke. You were there the last road game they won, September 2009. I was not. That's how long ago this has been.
Yeah, it was out in the West Texas town of El Paso.
Yeah.
And they crushed them. And Lou Perkins and Mark Mangino were chummy after the game. I remember that. Things have changed since then. So, but it can't just look at it as bad news. The players can't look at it as bad news that they're going on the road. Coaches can't look at it. Every year you get to reset the clock that way. This is the team that needs to break that streak. And Montel Kozart said that's number one on their priority list. Of course, it's the right thing to say when you're going out on
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it can't just be automatic that, this is horrible. That's the wrong mindset. I don't think these guys have that. I talked with Isaiah Johnson about all kinds of motivational tactics, whether it's signs in the locker rooms, in their lockers. Coach Holsop will put stuff all over the place. He said, Isaiah told me they have a Jayhawk tile thing, and there's one missing, and the only way they get the one tile back to complete it, sort of like Major League. You remember the movie where they take that? The only way they get that final tile to complete it is if they went on the road. So we'll see if it happens.
And Lost in Translation, time for our new segment this week. We're going to be doing it every week. Matt, as you know, sometimes coaches and athletes say one thing, but they mean something else. They're really talking about something else, and we're very suspicious. So let's have a listen to what Charlie Weiss has to say.
You know, Coach Cutt's been there for now 7 years. His first year they won 5, second year they won 4, third year they won 3, fourth year they won 3. Finally, in the fifth year they go 6-6 and get to a bowl game, and we're losing a bowl game. But, finally at the end of 5 years it kind of gotten them back on the map, and there, year 6, there they go, 10-2 regular season.
Well, Matt, that's what Charlie Weiss said, and it was all accurate. But I suspect what he was really saying and whom he was really talking to was Shane Zenger. Shane, just give me an extension. I'll get you to a bowl game in year 5, and I'll get you a 10-2 record in year 6. How does that sound? Let's go. Let's shake on it. He's 5-20, but he is a bold man.
Yeah, it definitely had that hint of a little ulterior motive, a little hidden message there. Nothing gets by you, though, so no reason to worry there. Let's move on to Breakdown Street this week and talk about this matchup with Duke a little bit. The way I see it, it's offense versus offense. I think Coach Weiss said earlier in the week they don't want to get in a shootout in this one. They don't want it to be 100-99. Nobody would ever want that, but you get the point.
If Kansas said the 100 they want.
Yeah, well, that's true. That wouldn't be too bad. But the thing he's looking for is his offense to keep scoring points, whatever it takes. If that's long, sustained drives, that's fine. I really think there's a good chance that KU will be able to expose some vulnerability in Duke's rush defense. Troy did it last week. First 2 drives, they had over 100 yards rushing, and Kansas, that's a strength for Kansas. We saw it in the past couple of years. certainly was that way last week. So that's a big one. I think the shootout thing is definitely something you want to be cognizant of, but you got to score points, and you got to find a way to stop Duke. Pretty much, if one of these teams can just get a couple extra stops, whichever team scores, at a regular rate, I think that'll help, and I think that gives a chance.
Well, Charlie Weiss might not want a shootout, but I think that's what we're going to see. That's what we're going to cover, and I like covering shootouts. I think this has the potential to be a pretty exciting game because there's some pretty explosive players on both sides.
No question. Well, let's do that. Let's predict the outcome. Prediction time. I'll let you start. I think you started last week. I'm curious always to hear your picks.
Okay.
Usually they're completely full. Well, we'll stop there.
I did think it would be. I think I said 42-7 last week for Kansas.
We were a little high. We were both a little high.
I'm going to stick with the 42, but I'm going to give Duke 42 and Kansas 28. I do think we're going to see a shootout. I think that Cozart will get just a little bit better every week, and I think he has a chance to get just a little bit better this week and get that offense moving. And if they move for 4 quarters, they can put 28 points up. But I didn't see much of a pass rush.
Right.
So that's why I think Duke is going to have its way with Kansas's defense. And what do you have?
I picked 6 wins for this team. This was one of them. I got to stick with it. I wasn't, like a lot of you, I wasn't totally discouraged by what I saw last week. I think there were some positive signs. I think there's going to be points scored as well. I think 35-31 Kansas. And I think one of the big differences, one of the big plays that sets this margin is a deep ball from Montel Cozart to one of his receivers. I think he hits on one this week, and I think that's going to be huge.
Well, it certainly would give him more space and give the running backs more space if he could prove that he is a deep threat. Because right now I think teams are going to make him prove that. And he has been working on it all week.
Right.
He mentioned that. He's worked on it with the 4 outside receivers after practice every day this week.
Primetime pick. You absolutely nailed it with Tony Pearson last week. We already talked about that. I'll stop patting you on the back. But I'll let you go first on this one again, too. Who do you got this week?
Just talked about the outside receivers and long passes. I'm going to go with the inside receiver, the slot man, Nick Harwell. He got open so often last week. Cozart certainly is going to look for him first, and I think he'll find him open a lot again. So I'm going to go with Nick Harwell.
Nick Harwell also would have been a good, acceptable pick last week. He had a great game. So
probably for 12 weeks.
Yeah, 2 in a row is what you're feeling. All right. My primetime pick this week, I'm going to go with Ja'Cory Shepherd. I'm going on defense. I think KU finds a way, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, just to get a stop or two that's really key, and I think Ja'Cory Shepherd will be a big part in that. He's going to be matched up a lot of the afternoon with the 6'6" receiver, Isaac Blakeney. This guy's way taller than Ja'Cory, and I talked to him about that. How's that matchup? He said, well, I got to know where his body is. I got to make sure I don't let him shield me from the ball, and then I've got to worry about those jump balls. And he said, I don't want to jump too early. If anything, I'd rather jump a little late, and while he's going up, maybe, or while he's coming down, I go up and maybe can get it away. So
he was a good basketball player,
Ja'Cory, right,
and a good rebounder for his size. So maybe some of that will come in handy. He can lead.
That's what he said. The first thing he said his dad told him this week when he learned about the matchup is back to your days of playing the 4 in basketball. And Ja'Cory, if you've seen him, he's not a 4 body. But the guy's a great athlete. And I also think he'll be inspired by what Dexter McDonald did last week. The 2 picks, the 2 pass breakups. He got all the love of the corners. Ja'Cory's going to be fired up and try to get that love this week. So I like Ja'Cory Shepherd. Tom likes Nick Harwell. Let's finish this thing off, shall we?
With some people we don't necessarily like.
Right.
The most obnoxious men in sports. I've got a pick. You've got a pick. I'm going with Roger Goodell. Roger Goodell, just a few days ago, said, this is the first we've seen of the tape.
Yeah.
Associated Press reports on Wednesday that the NFL was shown the tape, sent the tape by law enforcement in April. It is October now, September now.
September, yeah.
Getting ahead of myself.
We'll stop patting you on your back.
It's September and April.
Yeah, that's a long time.
The NFL was sent the tape by law enforcement in April. Roger Goodell says in September, this is the first we've seen of it. He's lying, and he's got to lose his job over this. The most obnoxious man in sports this week, Roger Goodell.
Yeah, that's a lot of time, too, to get your story straight, and they still have blown that even. So I think Ray Rice could be an obnoxious guy, too. But I'm going to go a different direction. I just think that story doesn't deserve much attention because that's just awful all the way across the board. My most obnoxious man this week, USC Athletic Director Pat Hayden. Pat Hayden in USC's victory over Stanford was summoned down to the sideline late in the game. Steve Sarkisian, the head coach, asked someone on his staff to text Hayden and have him come down to the field to argue with officials. Hayden, not disregarding that text like most humans and professionals would have, saw it, said, "I need an elevator, I'm going down," and he went down and he got in a heated discussion with officials on the field during a game. He got fined $25,000. That's not nearly enough. I think he needs to be our most obnoxious man in sports. That'll really hurt. Forget the 25 grand.
It's a good pick, and I remember him as a quarterback at USC. Yes, that's how old I am, but typical that athletic directors feel as if they're working for coaches, not the other way around. You take the marching orders from a coach. You got to say to the coach, "No, that's wrong. I don't belong on the field." Because he doesn't.
Thank you. Under no circumstances should anyone make that move. I don't care if it's the national championship game. Bad move.
And that
obnoxious.
goes for parents talking to referees and umpires at Little League games and Pop Warner games.
Yeah, it's a bad look for just about everybody that does it. But anyway, that's all we've got for KU Sports Extra this week. Thanks for checking it out. We'll be down in Durham, North Carolina, home of the Duke Blue Devils, and this time we'll be focusing on their football team as they prepare to take on Kansas at 2:30 Saturday. We'll have all your live game coverage, reaction from the game, all that stuff. So be sure to check out KUsports.com throughout the week and throughout the weekend for coverage of that, and come back next week for another episode of KU Sports Extra.